So, welcome everybody and happy Friday. Thank you for being here for our bi-monthly Eastside Wrap meeting to discuss the impact of homelessness on the East Side. My name is Landon. I am the Director of Programs at SB Act, and this is a partnership with the City of Santa Barbara as a part of our broader efforts in South County to address homelessness. So, we're joined by Barbara and Carrie from the City Administrator's Office, who will be speaking to some different homelessness related topics today. I briefly just wanted to mention our schedule coming up. So this coming Monday, this is actually an event that's being hosted by the city of Goleta, but I wanted to just put it on everyone's radar in case it's of interest. There will be a Zoom discussion about what does it take to get from homelessness to housing. Actually, I'll go to the next slide to show you the flyer. So we'll be hosting this, but it's a partnership with the city of Goleta, and we'll have some other providers there talking about the different concepts around homelessness, like how do you get into the coordinated entry system, and what does it take to become document ready, and all of that to try and demystify the process. And then our next meeting will be 2 weeks from today on the 29th, which is a short week because of Memorial Day. So yeah, since we have you on the call, Barbara, should we start with you just so you can get your stuff done? And then we can go to Carrie.
Sure, I'm happy to. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you. We've had a couple of developments that I wanted to update the neighborhood on. The first is that City Council on Tuesday unanimously approved the edits to or say amendments, edits, adjustments to our oversized vehicle ordinance. And there was one really important change. That's it. So I just wanted to clarify with folks what that change is and be able to answer any questions. So our oversized vehicle ordinance changed several years ago to include a multiple warning period for individuals that are in violation of the oversized vehicle ordinance. So law enforcement, whether through parking enforcement or patrol officers, would um, see that someone's violating that ordinance and would communicate to them a warning and share information related to the New Beginnings Safe Parking Program and how to engage with the outreach team there. And then if the individual moved from that location 1,000 linear feet, but was still in violation of that ordinance, they would receive an additional warning and that same program information. And so that would continue on. And I think what you've seen is, you know, areas where folks have, resided for quite a long time or repopulation of certain areas as folks kind of move around. And we do want to clarify that it is unlawful to be in an oversized vehicle in the city of Santa Barbara in the public right of way. And those kind of height and width restrictions have been very clear for a long time. And so what we're trying to do and what we have been doing for the last 18 months is working with New Beginnings through the Encampment Resolution Funding Grant Program to offer a pathway to housing for folks that are residing in these vehicles. And so they have had really huge success with resources like we've never had before to be able to successfully support people on that pathway. But there are folks remaining that have shared that there's no motivation for them to pursue that path and pay rent when they're comfortable in their current living environment. So we're hoping that the combination of one, that New Beginnings is still there. We still have significant resources through the end of the year, as well as more engagement on the enforcement side, which is unfortunately sometimes a way to have folks be just more open to enrolling in such a program, that we will be able to actually have some really good traction over the next 6 months to get more folks enrolled again when we have these resources. But moving forward, we have seen and reported to Ordinance Committee as well as Council the impacts of these vehicles residing in an area for an extended period of time. And actually, over the past 6 months, our code enforcement team, in terms of their reports for small encampments, excessive belongings, illegal dumping, hazardous waste, 35% of those reports have been along Quarantina and Cacique. And so we know we've heard consistently from all of you, Councilmember Santa Maria absolutely has prioritized our response to the region. And we've been able to do a lot, but I think this enforcement mechanism and tool will be really helpful for everyone involved, both folks that need support moving forward, as well as the neighborhood in terms of cleanliness and environmental and public health impacts. So the ordinance changes the warning period. So individuals will continue to receive that initial warning and information on the New Beginnings program. And as I mentioned before, the team is fully staffed and ready to go and ready to engage and has actually engaged quite a bit with individuals in these 6 priority regions. So not just Quarantina, but we have other regions throughout the city that are experiencing these impacts and will continue to do so. But after that initial warning, if an individual continues to um, uh, be unlawfully parked in an oversized vehicle on a public street, they will and can receive a citation. So I wanted to clarify that. I think again, our approach has been, multidisciplinary. We're all in communication and collaboration with each other. That will continue to happen if someone is receptive to enrollment, but now, a number of citations and fines impedes their ability to enroll in the safe parking program, we have ways that we can address that outside of the process, at least related to city fines and fees. So that communication continues and will happen regularly as well. So we really just want to facilitate that pathway more, as well as make sure that we're addressing the public health and environmental and public safety impacts on our roadways. Any questions on that?
One quick question. When do you anticipate that enforcement will begin?
So it's 30 days from
Okay.
approval of that ordinance.
And then just a comment that the city of Goleta has just begun enforcing like this week their vehicular dwelling. They have a new vehicular dwelling enforcement mechanism on public streets as well. Um, and so just it'll be interesting to see kind of how it all shakes out, and I think just making sure we're all talking with each other about it to kind of learn from each other as we implement these.
Yeah, we have a monthly regional coordination meeting around this encampment resolution grant related to vehicular homelessness. And so all of us have been communicating, one, the progress and the success that we've been able to have, how we can maintain that success, but also these pieces where we're still not seeing that shift in behavior that we need to make sure that we're preserving the safety and public health for everyone. So I think it's been really good for us to see and communicate and learn together. And
Great.
yeah, we'll see, Landon, kind of where these next coming weeks and months take us.
Well, thank you. Was there anything else from your end, Barbara?
It was just some questions around some signage around Cacique
Right.
on immediate removal of personal belongings in the public right of way. So that is related to a separate section of our municipal code outside of a sit and lie ordinance. So two, very different parts of our code. There sometimes can be crossover there, but it doesn't have to be. And our excessive kind of unattended personal belongings and attended personal belongings in the public right-of-way ordinance was adopted, I think it's been 2 years now, maybe. Um, and that was in response to mostly unattended belongings in the public right of way that were really impacting, again, this safe routes for folks. And working with and dealing with some of the kind of impacts to folks residing in their vehicles as well. So um, that for us, we can immediately remove belongings attended or unattended in the public right of way. So not in parks, not in other locations, but in the public right of way because of the public safety issues. But our team, as you all know, is really good about giving those notices no matter what. And so we want to make sure that folks have time to pare down those belongings, understand what the violation is, and be able to comply. So the signage is really for us when we see repeat offenses and impact to the public right of way that is really negative to individual and personal safety and public safety in general. So that signage just helps us, inform folks as we remove those belongings. We're actually going to be doing something similar in another neighborhood where we're seeing a lot of those impacts and folks not being able to walk across the sidewalk or it's spilling over into the street, and causing negative impacts there as well. So that is separate from the sit lie ordinance. And I think, Sebastian has continued to bring this up. And I do want to refer to Lieutenant Beltran as much as I can, but it really is our use of discretion on issuing citations for sit lie. And an individual that is not encamped in an area and is in the public sphere versus on private property is very nuanced. And so someone can be sitting on a bench or sitting on a sidewalk. And so the sidewalk piece technically violates sit lie, but we'd rather encourage that person to move along and inform them of the violation than issue the citation that would result in a course of action that isn't favorable to that individual. Again, continuing on a positive trajectory and positive pathway in terms of experiencing homelessness. So um, it's a balance. It's a balance. And I think our team leans towards, hey, we really need you to move along. If there's an encampment kind of building around them, or as a result of their own personal actions, we will notice that encampment for removal. But we usually try to encourage folks to voluntarily comply rather than issue a citation. And so it's a constant balance. I think there's always folks moving up and down the Milpas corridor at any given time. And anyone that we see that is having those negative impacts, we do work to address that. And so it's shifting. It's a constantly kind of evolving piece of the work that we do on the enforcement side, as well as the homeless outreach side. But Lieutenant Beltran, I'll turn it over to you to add anything to that as well.
Sure. Thanks, Barbara. Hopefully, I don't just echo most of what you just said, but basically, it's the sit lie ordinance. We don't necessarily view it as kind of like a zero tolerance type of thing. Just like Barbara said, we're trying to balance accountability on that with like empathy and stuff. If it's not a super big nuisance or they're creating some other issue by being there, we typically just approach it the way Barbara was saying. We try to ask them nicely to move along, warn them about the ordinance and things like that without just initially coming up to them and issuing citations and taking enforcement right away for something like that. Obviously, we take the whole totality of the circumstance into consideration, but that's really not our goal in that situation. Sebastian did bring it up to me a few weeks ago, though. I talked to him, and one thing that he pointed out that was important was we do have a lot of new officers of the department that don't actually they weren't even aware of that ordinance. So just so everyone knows, I have been providing some training on that and providing the information out to the newer officers. So that way they're at least aware of the ordinance, whereas before they didn't even know that that existed. So they didn't even know that they could go and warn people for that. So that's my
Yeah. And trespassing on private property is a low level offense as well. And so, I definitely think there's a stronger enforcement mechanism there, but it's not much stronger. And so I think again we're trying to balance um, both enforcement as well as compassionate outreach along that corridor. And I think, as Carrie knows, our city net team is constantly kind of moving around to be able to address individuals of concern, but also just high impacted areas in general of folks that we're seeing kind of congregate as well. So um, I know that's doesn't necessarily always meet expectation, and the flow of folks just consistently changes. I was, on the east side for a meeting earlier this week, and it was looking great. So, and I just appreciate that Mercy House and the Cacique couple of blocks is really transformed already. So it's I just cannot thank you enough for the attention to the neighborhood as well as to the folks and the care inside the building as well. So thanks, Landon.
Yeah, thank you. And just echoing that, Sebastian also noted that in his email, just his appreciation for how clean that particular block is in Cazique. Um, all right. So I was going to actually, I should have probably brought this up earlier, but just briefly mention as well. So the with regard to vehicular homelessness, the County of Santa Barbara is in the process of finishing their report from their study of vehicular homelessness throughout Santa Barbara County. They are just beginning to share some very preliminary findings, but they've said they're going to hopefully have a final report in July, which we're looking forward to. I will say, just from hearing some of the preliminary findings, I think a couple things that were interesting were one, just how many of the individuals they interviewed were kind of didn't identify as homeless. They were saying, "No, this is where I live. I'm very happy here. I have no interest in moving out of my vehicle or RV, whatever it might be." Um, and then the other piece was that almost half of these individuals are currently employed, and a lot of them within our service sector, domestic sector, or hospitality sectors. So it's just something for us all to be aware of. It'll be interesting to see the full findings as they come out. But I think as we're talking about it, especially with local businesses too, just for them to engage with their employees about it, because there's a high likelihood that many of our larger organizations in town are employing individuals that may be living in vehicles. And so that may be a better starting place for starting to have that conversation about how can we assist you with this.
Landon, I'm so glad you mentioned that because just had an internal team meeting. It's called our Neighborhood Improvement Task Force because that's how government names things. But we were talking about exactly that. Is that a number of folks this is a choice for me. It's more affordable than paying rent, and are working in nearby businesses, and living in their vehicle. So I do think the business engagement is a strategy that we need to spend more time on, and the city is committed to doing that as well.
And then Carrie, and I don't know, Barbara, if you were also on that COC call yesterday, but I don't know if either of you had anything else you wanted to share from that presentation.
From the COC, oh, from the vehicular homelessness call.
Yeah,
Mostly just the report in July. We'll see how that comes. I think that a, having a strategy that acknowledges that people are wanting to live in their homes is something we need to work on with New Beginnings, and just acknowledge in all of our tactics. So, I mean, I think that it keeps coming up that, yeah, we can move people around a lot, but it's just moving people around.
sure. Yeah, this is a new challenge for all of us. All right. So at this time, we typically will open it up for community members to share any concerns. And then after that, we'll go around to our service providers. We just have a few community members, but I wanted to see if you have anything you wanted to bring up. Go ahead, Chris.
I don't really have a concern. I'm just going to restate the fact that my neighborhood is so much better now that Mercy House is there. It's not just the cleanliness, it's the lowered activity, it's the fewer people hanging out there. I just was by there the other day and I saw one of those red Mercy shirts out there picking up trash out front, and so many levels of better. And I'm thankful.
That's great. We love to hear that. And not to put you on the spot, Councilmember Santa Maria, but just want to check if you had anything you wanted to bring up.
No, nothing additional to bring up. But I do echo Chris's appreciation. I Mercy House, I really truly can't thank you enough. And also our city staff. I know that this has been an incredible team effort. I'm really excited to see where it goes. As far as some of the stuff that y'all were discussing earlier, I of course keep getting calls about the some of the hot spots like Quarantina and Casica stuff. I still get those calls. I think I got one actually this morning. I did actually get one this morning. Um, I'm curious about what would be the most streamlined way other than SB Connect, because I don't really, I mean, folks really want sort of an immediate response when they are seeing either nuisance in the neighborhood or impacts to health and public safety. So what is the most streamlined way for people to report it? Like who would be the best person that a constituent could call so that it's a quicker turnaround time?
Councilmember Santa Maria, I apologize if your constituents are not feeling like the response is timely enough, but our sustainability and resilience code enforcement team is probably our most responsive team in
Okay.
terms of the capacity that they have dedicated specifically to those public health and environmental impacts. So obviously, if an individual is unlawfully parked and there is a call to law enforcement, that would be the non-emergency line to law enforcement, and the
Uh-huh.
parking enforcement team would follow up. But in terms of any sort of excessive personal belongings, blocking the public right of way, the small encampments that pop up in these regions, as well as any of the kind of urine and other things that you see, illegal dumping that happens from these vehicles, the code enforcement team responds almost within 24 hours, if not 48 hours. So I'm happy to share a phone number that can be reached, and that number allows a constituent to leave a message, same as SP Connect. And I hope it's still the case that this team closes out those reports on SP Connect pretty quickly. So let's talk offline if that has not been the experience, because I know the team would want that feedback, and we can adjust accordingly for sure.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much.
I would also just like to add that, the SB Connect mechanism, we're working on that as well so that there can we do kind of an auto reply, like if this is an emergency, call 911. But sometimes we do get folks who want, there's somebody sitting outside a business. And then by the time we're really realistically able to get there, that person has moved on. And there's an area in there that's just like managing expectations. Like if you really do want an immediate response, calling a number and calling the non-emergency police line is probably going to be your best bet, because we just only have so much staff. And then even through the non-emergency police line, we have to prioritize. Again, we only have so much staff. So, but at least calling the non-emergency police line, they're talking to somebody and can get a little bit of information that way versus having a ticket that, is being responded to as quickly as possible. So I would encourage people, if they want an immediate response, to call that police line number.
Thank you. That's all.
Go ahead, Chris.
I have also felt that frustration dealing with SB Connect. And I think one of the things, I don't know if it's possible, but whenever you send something in, if they could send a follow-up to say, okay, that got done. Okay, the red curb on the blue curb for the handicap parking got completed on such and such a date, or we expect it to be completed on such and such a date, or the couch that, if I see a couch on the street, I'm going to call Marburg, but for other things, if there was some sort of a mechanism where they could acknowledge the person as being other than that auto, yeah, we got your message, hi. It's very break, and it feels like you're not being heard. That's
great feedback. I think that there are a lot of tickets that I see coming through that are being responded to as well. So it might kind of vary depending on, what sort of ticket it is or staff time, but I can definitely pass that on, that the sense is that there's not a personal response happening when the closure is happening. Because we are attempting to close out the tickets as efficiently as possible. Sometimes there are ongoing issues that I will even note as like, remains on our radar and it's more in progress because it's an area of concern rather than, a particular issue that would be like closed, like Quarantina. We know we're still working on it, and I appreciate the feedback coming in. It does help us, especially gather data about how many concerns we're getting for a particular area and how to address that. But we do attempt to close all the tickets out with a note. So I'll pass that to the team.
And Chris, I just put in the chat, it really does range across departments. So as you know, Public Works, it goes into a work order queue that could take 6 months to a year, versus some departments that have the capacity to respond right away, and what they're addressing is more immediate in terms of concern. So I actually put in the chat kind of like, hey, if the reports are related to this, this, and this, that team responds and gets out there within 24 to 48 hours. The unlawfully parked, we want to get you out of SB Connect and into the non-emergency line. So I offered that. And then the homeless individuals of concern obviously take a little bit more time to engage, and folks might engage but not be receptive. And it'll take some time to kind of visibly see if they're getting the support that they need. So it's, I hate to be so specific about how to route these, but I think it speaks to Councilmember Santa Maria's point and Chris, your point. It does depend in terms of the vastness of SB Connect and the department's ability to respond based on what's being reported.
Thank you, Barbara. This is really helpful. I just wanted to clarify really quickly. The first message you sent, is that the Sustainability and Resilience Code Enforcement Team number? Is that the direct line to them? Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
Mhm.
Is it okay to share these with constituents?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All public numbers to report. And I think, Landon, we did have this in the homelessness response directory too. So we
Yeah.
can resend that and share that as well.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Landon, have you updated I know you were going to update the little card.
No, let's talk offline about it, just because I think now it's a little more complicated than it was when I was working on the update. So yeah, primarily just with CityNet changes, and so I can message you right after this and we can figure something out.
Perfect.
One other minor thing to bring up too, in Sebastian's email, he mentioned there's an individual, I think he's seen at least once, sleeping on the public right of way in the mornings near CVS on the 300 block of Milpas. And so he was just requesting for outreach to check that area when they do morning outreach at some point. I'll also refer him to SB Connect, and I'll make sure and share these numbers in the email response too.
And you can share with him that I did forward that to CityNet.
Thank you.
Yes, we have engaged with that individual before. I can share more about that in the provider portion of the meeting.
Thank you. Another community member from these calls had also connected me with somebody who's actually on staff at CVS. So I invited them to join these calls. So hopefully we'll be able to have them attend at some point as well. Any other community concerns? Okay, let's hear briefly from our providers. Why don't we start with the CityNet outreach team?
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Yeah, so we're doing good. We've been conducting outreach in the usual areas. We've been getting some requests to focus more on the Yananali Rescue Mission area as well as Chase Palm Park. So we've been focusing on those areas. The past couple weeks have been pretty busy with Mercy House referrals. I believe that we are currently at capacity with our Mercy House beds. However, we're still able to complete the referral to put people on a waiting list that are interested in the beds, and those referrals are going through Alondra. And then in terms of the person by CVS, we've encountered two different people there. One of them is a white male, probably in his 50s, and then the other person that we spoke with was a African American woman, probably also in her 40s or 50s. The gentleman that we encountered, he was there at night and he had been sleeping there, and he said that he was receptive to services, but then I didn't see him again. We had scheduled to meet, I think, the next day, and he didn't show up. I don't work in the mornings, but we can have our day team go try to connect with him. And then the woman that we spoke with, I'm not sure if it's her that's also sleeping there, but she was not receptive to services. She was pretty intoxicated. And she was asking us to buy her alcohol, and she said she wasn't really interested in anything else. So that was what happened with that.
Thank you, Olivia. Can we go to Nancy in Mercy House?
Yeah, hi, good morning, everybody. I am just happy to, hear all the comments, and I'm just very excited, just to continue working with the community and seeing the changes. Our work is not done. We're still gonna, continue to make more progress, and, we're just looking forward to continuing the partnerships with everybody. I think on our end right now, we are also the program at our Casa Cacique shelter is, we're preparing to roll out counseling services. We're already in the process of kind of getting all the certifications. So that's a lengthy process on its own, but our team is getting ready and prepared for that. So very soon, those services will be available to the shelter clients. So that's probably the biggest update right now going on at the shelter, that we're preparing for rollout of the Cali implementation.
That's great. Lieutenant Beltran.
Thanks, Landon. Not a whole lot to report. Like everybody had said, that the area down there looks really good. The one area that we've really been focusing on a lot is the tracks from railroad tracks, from Milpas all the way down along the bird refuge and even a little bit beyond that. We've gotten a lot of reports of camps and some thefts from the Caltrans stuff that's going on over there, the projects. So we're really trying to focus a lot of effort down there. And I don't know if there's any how far out there any outreach CityNet goes or anything. Most of the issues are at night. I don't know if they're present during the day, but that's what we've been dealing with quite a bit lately.
Yeah, Olivia.
Yes, our team does go and do outreach in that area. I think one of the issues with the tracks and the clearings is that a lot of the time people will just come back there. But we do have some clients that stay in that area, so we can continue to do outreach there.
All right, thank you both. All right, that's it for our agenda. Anything else to bring up while we're all together? Question in the chat from Chris. Will Mercy House be getting medical services on site like Path had?
I believe aside from the partnerships, that's something that, if you're referring to the counseling services, I think the only thing right now we're looking at is just community supports, maybe enhanced case management, and also short-term post hospitalization beds. So that's just some of the services that we're looking at through the counseling.
And we are looking to find a provider to open the clinic, so that we have an active conversation about that going on, and have some providers interested.
That's great. Thank you both. All right, if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and end for today. Service providers and city staff, if you want to stick around. Otherwise, we'll say have a good weekend, everybody. See you later, Chris.